Smart.
Yeah, smart.
We did a bendy stick. I like how we're just chasing you down.
With bendy sticks. We really want you to have the bendy stick.
I like pulling our artistic things with them. When we get to put that in the mix. You go there. Right. Got you. Nice oil.
I've been counting down. I have 16 days left till the cruise. I'm very
It's
excited.
really
Where
fun.
you going? Okay.
We're now Texas, which I'm not thrilled
Yeah.
about, but
But the
It's just
waters,
like, you
the
know.
waters are different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could avoid Texas. But
Hear ya.
but we go to Honduras, Belize.
That's
and,
amazing.
So
So that's worth it having it's with you.
week. Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, all those places are just beautiful.
And it's hot. It's like in the 80s there.
Oh.
Not Texas, but in the other places. So
It's-
well, up here.
Oh, you got it? And then you get it.
So
in.
excited.
That's so cool.
I'm ready to eat.
You're like, yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. There you go.
Good things when you have kids because it's a contained space. You
We've
know?
taken them
So
on 2 of them.
it seems smart.
Yeah. Like it's really, there's so much for them to do.
That's awesome.
And with the 2 we've been on about.
I've still never been on a cruise. I don't know if you've ever done it, but my mother-in-law just went to Mexico, like a 7-day, and she said it was amazing.
It's a carnival cruise.
Oh,
Yeah, it's a question.
oh, it's all the food.
Oh, it's the food. It's the food.
For her, it was the drinks, but she was like,
And people there like are usually so that like
these
it-
are all freaking cool.
yeah. So it's been nice every time. It's never been like negative.
That's so good.
We go. First. Yeah.
Thank you.
Bendy stick, move it around.
Yeah.
Oh,
Everybody's here. So I can have your attention now. Good morning, good morning. So my name is Allison Barton. I'm the coordinator at the Northside College Student Health Center. We live right across Raider Walk from you. How many of you have been to the Student Health Center or know about it? So a bunch of you have not been there. Just want to make sure everybody is aware that the Student Health Center is there for you. You pay a health fee every term that you're here on campus. And for that, you have access to medical care at the whole doctor's office on campus, right? But you also have access to free mental health services too. Actually, they're not, it's already paid, right? You've already paid for it, may as well take advantage of it. Not only do we have medical and mental health services at the Student Health Center, but we also have, lots of great free stuff. We have a self care center right in our waiting area. So if you get to school and you find that you have a headache or you need a antihistamine or you're out of condoms, you need some condoms, they're all there and you don't have to ask. It's right in our little self-care area. And they're for the taking because you pay your health fee every semester. So don't forget about us. We're right there for you. Everything is confidential, no, there's no melding of your medical record and your school records, right? If your mom calls and asks us why you were there, we don't tell her. Because it's confidential. So it's a really nice, opportunity for you to get care that you need, right? And you've already paid for it. The other thing is, I forgot to mention, is that we have like the best lip balm ever. So that alone, you can get your money's worth just in lip balm. So we got it, we're there for you, and that's so we're happy with that. Right?
Okay.
So, students follow us over there after this, just for the promise of the lip balm. Watch, we're out of it or something.
I got some in my office.
So, American veteran, she is our awesome health educator. Some of you may have seen her doing outreach events on campus. She's all over the place. The beautiful brochures that you have seen with the fantastic art are all her labors of love, and she's here with me today too. So, today we're here to do a PPR training with you. Question, persuade, refer, and it's a suicide prevention curriculum. This is a tough subject for a lot of people, right? And so I just want to make sure that everybody knows that it can be a tough subject for a lot of people. And if you find that it's overwhelming to you, we understand if you want to sit out. That's fine. If you need to leave the room for any reason today, like even to use the bathroom or get a drink of water or whatever, please let Eliza know that you're going to do that. What's going on, right? Because sometimes people get a little overwhelmed by this topic. And we want to make sure that we help you through that, through, crisis counseling or anything like that, right? We'll worry about you even if you just had to pee, right? So please let her know that before you take off, okay? That's a really important safety tip. All right. Any questions before we get started? Okay, so this is a really widely used and very effective training for suicide prevention. It was developed by Dr. Paul Quinnett, who's up in the Seattle area. He's a psychologist, a clinical psychologist, and he, with his team, developed this as a very good strategy for preventing, for noticing, understanding signs and symptoms of suicide, and then preventing somebody from taking their life, right? And you may notice it's QPR and it sounds a little bit like CPR, right? Cardiopulmonary resuscitation, and that's intentional. It kind of wants to tell you that there are some steps that you take, some observations you can make, and then some steps you can take to help a person when they're in need, to prevent them from falling. And that's the whole purpose of it. What can you do quickly as kind of a citizen responder or a gatekeeper? That's what this is called, gatekeeper training, to prevent somebody from killing themselves. All right, so I think we should get started. So what are we going to do today? We're going to learn about early warning signs, how to recognize them. We're going to talk about bold intervention. That's what I was just describing. I'm going to do what I need to do to swoop in and help somebody in need, right? Early referral. So we are not being trained as psychologists or therapists in this room today, right? We don't have those credentials, but we are human beings who would be able to know about resources, recognize signs, and help people that we know and love get the help they need. So early professional assessment and treatment, that's what you're going to help the person get. And then the other reason that we come together and we do a lot of the trainings we do is to decrease stigma. There are a lot of people who think that mental health issues are a weakness somehow, or that there's something wrong with you. It's something to be kept quiet, something to not share with other people. We want to decrease that. Mental health issues should be treated the same as any other medical issue, right? And so that's another reason why we come together to talk about this stuff. All right. So QPR is not intended to be a form of counseling or treatment. That's what we said. We're not trained counselors, but it is intended to offer hope in any form. And we'll talk a little bit about what that might be like. Okay. So one of the things before we get into it, when we're talking about stigma, is that culture matters. In a lot of cultures, there's a lot of stigma attached to depression, anxiety, any sort of mental health issues, and suicide, right? And so we're going to talk a little bit about different ethnicities and their overall view. Not to say that everybody from every ethnic group feels the same way about everything, right? You know that. But here we want to say here that there's a lot of stigma and judgment in general in the Black community, and sometimes that will keep people from seeking treatment, right? It also, in this particular group, a lot of people view mood disorders as being crazy. You don't want to talk about it, you don't want to do anything about it, talking about it. Any of that just wouldn't ever be appropriate, even around people that you like and love. So we noticed that there's a difference in prevalence among Latinx women and men. But we don't even know if it really is a difference in prevalence, or if it's a difference in stigma between the genders, or if it's, or if it's some report it more than others, or some seek care more than others. We don't even know why that difference exists, but it just does, right? First and second generation Hispanics are significantly more likely to exhibit symptoms of depression, right, than new immigrants. And that actually tends to be true of other health markers, diabetes, obesity, all those kinds of things too. So there's a lot of discussion about why that is. Just suffice to say, right now, statistically, that seems to be a thing, right? There's also a lack of Latinx and Black and any other ethnic group you want to name providers of mental health services. And that can actually be a barrier for people seeking services, even when they decide to seek services for mood disorders or any other mental health issues. Okay, so Black boys ages 10 to 13 are 2 or 3 times more likely to die by suicide than white boys that are the same age. There are lots of reasons why that is. At no time do we want to say that there's an inherent weakness, though, in any sort of ethnic group or racial group, right? It's not a weakness of any sort. It has more to do with services that are available that are culturally sensitive, or the way that different ethnicities are treated in society. If you went to different countries, you would see different statistics just because of the social aspect, right? So it's not an inherent weakness, and I want to make that very clear. Okay, so let's see. We have other ones too. Less likely to report mental health conditions, stigma. We see that over and over here, right? Okay. It's the leading cause of death among Asian Americans aged 20 to 24 years, but that's true. That's also the leading cause of death for lots of deaths, not just Asian Americans. This is another weakness, stigma. So there are a lot of social issues, right, that prevent this ethnicity, this ethnic group, people in it, from discussing topics of mental health. All right. Also, again, I mentioned this, a lack of readily available culturally and linguistically appropriate suicide prevention can really cause problems as well. We're going to talk later on about ways to get culturally and linguistically appropriate, at least mental health treatment, right? There's a really good website that we like to recommend. All right, so according to the CDC, there were 126 suicides per day in the US, or about 1 death every 11 minutes in 2020. These are the latest statistics that we have, and we try to update it all the time. Just know that there's a kind of a lag in statistics, so that's why that seems old. Second leading cause of death, we saw this before, 10 to 14 and 25 to 34 age range. Homicide replaced suicide in the 15 to 24, right? That knocked it down to a third, so that's troubling for sure. Highest risk for suicide is middle age, predominantly white males, so 45 to 54. So that will come into play when you think about how you question somebody in that group, right? And it's the 11th leading cause of death overall in the US and 12th in California. COVID knocked them out of the top 10. Right, so a lot more people died of COVID, have died of COVID during the COVID era. It'll be interesting to see when we have new statistics there to see if it's kind of gone back. All right. So suicide ideation, and that's thinking about suicide. And the number of attempts are highest in the 18 to 25 age group. White males have the highest suicide rates. LGBTQIA+ attempt suicide at 5 times the rate of heterosexual individuals or those who identify as heterosexuals. 8.5 times if there's family rejection. So remember I said earlier, there's not an inherent weakness in any of these groups that we've described, but it has to do with acceptance and feeling accepted, right? So that's a big part of that one. All right. Another one, about 17 veterans die by suicide each day in the United States. So there was a little bit of a drop between 2018 and 2019. Although there is also a question of the statistical, techniques used to question that. So it'll be interesting to see when we get the newest statistics if that's still the case. But it's still, all that to be said, that's a lot of veterans that die by suicide every day. And firearms account for almost 53% of all suicides. That's up from 51% in 2018. So our availability of guns in our country, et cetera, those issues play into that. So that's another thing to tuck away when you're thinking about methods and how people are thinking about killing themselves, right? Okay. So COVID-related statistics, we already heard the one that it kind of knocked it knocked suicide out of the top 10. By the end of June 2020, 40% of US adults reported struggling with mental health or substance use, and compare that with about 28% in 2018. So I don't know about you guys, but I have heard in the news and I have experienced in the Student Health Center that we have huge increases in mental health concerns, right? And people are getting treated for them, which is wonderful. But last fall semester, we had the highest number of mental health appointments ever historically in the Student Health Center. And we're not alone. So I just want you to know. So the good news about that is I think that the stigma has dropped. People are very happy to, not happy, but they're very willing to admit that they have a problem and that they need help, and we're there to help them. So I just want you to be aware of that. And that's kind of one of the many COVID silver linings, I think, is it's really brought mental health to the forefront. 31% reported anxiety and depression, and compare that to 11% right before. 26% reported trauma or stressor-related disorder symptoms related to COVID. I can't even tell you how many hundreds of excuse withdrawal in the last 2 years because of COVID-related. I have to drop out to take care of my family. Like so many things related to COVID that really affected our mental health for sure. 13% talked about starting or increasing substance use, which is you'll find out later, is very related to depression, anxiety, and suicide ideation, right? The other thing to be aware of is unpaid caregivers are 3 times more likely to report suicide ideation than non-caregivers. We had several students in that department over the last couple of years. They had to quit school to take care of their whole family. It was not uncommon to hear that story. And then rates for anxiety and depression and suicide worse for people of color for all of the reasons we already mentioned. All right, so important to realize that undiagnosed and untreated depression is the #1 cause for suicide. Let me say that again. Undiagnosed and untreated depression is the #1 cause for suicide. And then expressing hopelessness is the #1 clue. So if somebody says, like, what's the point? What's the use? I don't see this turning out. Those kinds of statements really should be red flags for us as we're learning how to be gatekeepers. All right, so I want us all to look now at this. These two PET scans side by side. The one on the left shows a depressed person's brain, and the one on the right shows a not depressed person's brain. So what are some observations that you can make about?
There's a lot more activity in the not depressed brain.
100%. Yeah, a lot more activity, a lot more synapses firing, a lot more decision making, all that kind of stuff. Can everybody sort of see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we see that people's brains are not firing as much, what does that mean then? If on the right we're making a lot of decisions, on the left we are, what do you think? Right, or not able to put it together to make their decisions, right? So that's a really common thing that we see in people who are suffering from depression or anxiety. It's like it's very difficult to make decisions, any sort of decisions, right? So what are some signs and symptoms of depression that you have seen or that you have heard about or read about? Let's just throw some out. Yeah.
I know one of the biggest signs was like my friend started being really happy like a week before she went through with it, where she was just like everything was great, everything was fine, and then all went to school like the week or like on Monday, and we're like she's gone, and we're like,
Oh wow! So you have a friend who told herself, "I'm so sorry." Very difficult. Yeah. So did everybody hear that? There was sort of like a little mood elevation before that, and that is a fairly common thing when you see a mood. We're going to call that a mood swing. Mood swings are not always negative, right? They can be a positive mood swing too. And sometimes it's this idea of making a decision to kill themselves and kind of this little bump in mood prior to. So we want our friends to be happy and cheerful, right? But if you notice this kind of a shift, that's a good indicator. What other signs or symptoms of depression have you seen or heard about? Yeah.
Changing one's appearance.
Yeah, could be. Yeah, could be. Yeah. And so what's an example of a change of appearance that you would notice in somebody who's depressed?
Like cutting off all your hair.
Oh, like really radical. Yeah, could be. Could be. What other changes in appearance could you notice?
Like extreme change in behavior, I guess. So
Yeah.
like starting to use like hardcore drugs when drug tested like on a monthly basis. Yeah. Like just like I guess it's hopelessness kind of to an extent, yeah.
It could be, sometimes people start taking a lot more risks.
Yeah.
Because they're
There
like,
you go.
what do I have to lose? This is, what's the worst thing that can happen? I die. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to sound flippant, but that's kind of the thought.
That's
Yeah. What else? Yeah.
people are not showering.
Yes,
dirty
thank you.
clothes, or like their houses keeping them.
Yes.
Like withdrawals.
Just not taking care of yourself. Yeah. Not grooming, not, yeah.
I was gonna say like not taking care of yourself, like not eating. And
Yes.
oversleeping.
Yes.
Not sleeping.
Yes, beautiful changes in sleep patterns, yeah,
Less interested in activities they usually enjoy.
100%, yes, yeah, yeah.
Giving their stuff away.
Yes, giving their stuff away. So, I know my predecessor used to tell a story of a student that started giving away her like family heirlooms. And that was the red flag that something was up, right? So those are signs that are really important to keep your eyes open for, yeah.
I had a buddy that was who gave away like all of his like super Gucci gear before
Yeah.
he went out on deployment. We're like, "Fuck." And then all of a sudden when the party.
So you were,
Yeah.
so you were in the military?
Yeah.
Yes.
I had more buddies die from suicide than I did in combat.
Yes. I'm sorry for you.
It's okay.
It's a thing, though. So you saw that statistic, and it's big.
I'm pretty sure it's much higher than.
Well,
I think that's a skewed number.
again, it's like they changed the way they asked the question.
Yeah. I got it on 2020 and
Yeah.
very low.
Well, the suicide hotline has a special number just for veterans. I mean, and it's 988.
That's it.
It won't be a test, but you'll see that again and again. That's a really big one, but they have their own button, right? It's a known thing. So couple more? Yeah.
A lot of withdrawal, like enjoying things that they used
Yeah.
to.
Yes. Yeah. And somebody else, yeah.
Becoming more isolated, like not wanting to go out. Right?
Yes.
Year on.
Yes.
social
Yes.
Events.
A plus, it almost seems like you just studied mood disorders. It almost seems like that. Okay, beautiful job. Okay, so these are the ones, the heightened emotion. I think we've said all of these things that are on here. Yeah, so remember we saw the PET scans, difficulty making decisions, right? Withdrawing, somebody said, hopelessness, helplessness. Thoughts of death or suicide or wishing to be dead, and somebody might say that to you, and it might even sound like a joke, like, "Oh, get a gun and shoot me," or "I wish I were dead," or something
I
like
joke
that.
about that all the time in the military.
Yeah, yeah, it's a special bond. I was a Navy wife for.
Oh, there you go, you
so
know.
I know all about it.
Yeah.
I know. Okay, so there are lots, as you might know, there are lots of myths and facts about suicide. So the first myth here is no one can stop a suicide. It's inevitable. Would we be here if that were the case? No, we would not. Turns out if people in a crisis get the help they need, they'll probably not be suicidal again. I mean, they can be, but it really reduces the likelihood. Okay, so it's a really hopeful thing that you're doing today. Confronting a person about suicide will only make them angry and increase the risk of suicide. No. Asking someone directly about suicidal intent lowers anxiety, opens up communication, and lowers the risk of an impulsive act. And let me just tell you, that's the number one reason that I hear people telling me that they're just really nervous about asking somebody if they're planning to kill themselves. People are generally very relieved when you ask them that, because either they aren't, they're like, "Oh, well, no, I'm not that bad. That's good. I'm not feeling like I want to hurt myself or kill myself." But when you ask them that question and they are feeling that way, they're so relieved, usually. Very seldom. One of our colleagues had somebody got really mad at her for asking a long time ago. It was a long time ago. And she still got the help she needed. And she still didn't hurt herself or kill herself. So even when the person got angry, it still had a really positive outcome. So that's an important thing to be aware of. People generally are relieved to be asked. All right. Only experts can prevent suicide. Again, would we be here? No, we would not. Suicide prevention is everybody's business, and anyone can help prevent the tragedy of suicide. And so when you know somebody well enough, especially somebody in your family or a really good friend or whatever, and you notice changes, that you are in the perfect spot, because even, like a friend or a colleague or even a doctor wouldn't even notice the changes in behavior that you mentioned before, right? So you're in a really good spot to do something about it. All right, so suicidal people keep their plans to themselves. Actually, so you mentioned a few things. Most people communicate their intent sometime during the week before. So you mentioned that, it's super common. You might hear things like, you won't have to worry about me in a week or two. Or, yeah, you won't have to worry about me at all anymore. Those kinds of
Passing
comments.
responsibilities, like,
Yes.
"Hey, I'm gonna train you up as like the next
Yeah.
team leader, squad leader."
Yes, yes, exactly. So you'll hear little hints, right? Those who talk about suicide don't do it as a really common myth. Not true, okay? People who talk about suicide might try or even complete an act of self-destruction, all right? And then once a person decides to complete suicide, there's nothing you can do to stop them. Not true. Suicide is the most preventable cause of death, right? And almost any positive action may save a life. Culture plays a large role. We mentioned that before in mental health. No cultures are immune to suicide. All cultures have suicide in them. Nobody's immune to it at all. Okay. So we talked a lot about it. The more clues and signs observed, the greater the risk. You want to take all signs seriously, and you've had some really good examples of clues that were mentioned this morning in this class. So somebody might say, I've decided to kill myself. That is not my observation. Usually they aren't that open about it, but they might say something like, I wish I were dead. I'm going to commit suicide. They might say, I'm going to end it all. Or if such and such doesn't happen, I'll kill myself. So that bottom one is a pretty common thing to hear in a college setting, right? If I don't get an A, if I don't pass this class, if I don't get this part, if I don't, get in the band, or I don't get in the play, or I don't blah, 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 fill in the blank, I'm gonna kill myself. You'll hear people say that, right? So, one of my former colleagues always tells a story about a young man that was in this math class and said in math, oh my God, if I don't get an A on this test, I'm going to kill myself. And the instructor had the wherewithal to walk that student to the student health center, which if we're open and you're on campus, that's a really good strategy with another student, right? Walk them over. Turned out that this student was in a family who was putting a lot of pressure on him to get into medical school. And he was like, my family won't love me anymore, and they won't care about me, and I'll be out in the cold. I'll be the black sheep if I don't get into medical school. He got some therapy here on campus, and it turned out that he did not get an A on that test or in that class. And he didn't get into medical school, but he is still alive. Right? So that's a really important thing, to make sure that people get the treatment they need when they make these kinds of comments, and we should take these comments serious. Okay, so there are indirect ones too. I'm tired of life. I just can't go on. My family would be better off without me. Who might say my family would be better off without me? Who? I'm sorry.
Sometimes the elderly.
Yeah, an elderly person could say that. What were you?
I just I had kids in 2020, and that was something I said a lot. Right after the postpartum depression, I still.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. And you can feel very alone even without a pandemic. Yeah, there is postpartum depression. So thank you for mentioning that. Absolutely. So elderly people, especially people that are disabled and need a lot of care from their families, those kinds of things. Those are times when you might hear a comment like that. Yeah.
People who suffer from addiction generally feel a lot.
Yes, a lot of guilt, and there's so much relapse. It can be very overwhelming, and that's. Luckily, we do have some treatment, more and more treatment as we go along. It's another good reason, if it's a fellow student or it's you, to come to the student health center. We have great referrals and things like that we can do for you too. All right, who cares if I'm dead anyway? I just want out. I won't be around much longer. We've mentioned that. Pretty soon you won't have to worry about me. So those are indirect ways of saying this stuff. And then indirect verbal clues. I don't think I'll live past 21. Or I'm sick and tired and everyone's sick of me. So same kinds of things, people that require a lot of help and assistance from their families feel pretty bad. Now, all that said, culture and context determine language, idioms and words people use. I work a lot with exchange students, and we had an exchange student several years ago who kept saying, I'm going to kill myself, right? And people were really concerned about that. And for him, it was idiomatic, but was it important for us to check on that anyway? And check in with him and make sure, yeah, you need to, and then say, dude, maybe we could come up with a different phrase for you to use to say, what you're saying. Because in this culture, that could mean that you want to kill yourself. And we are very concerned about that. Okay.
Where was he from?
Italy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Sicily, actually. Yeah. which is a whole nother topic for another time. Interesting though. Yeah. But it's not just there. Like
Yeah.
that's a really common thing. Before doing PPR, I used to say stuff like that. Oh, I just want to kill myself. No, and I don't. I do not want to, but it made me really sensitive about even things I say. So that's another thing that we might want to think about when we change our own internal culture as we become aware, right? So what are some behavioral clues? We mentioned a bunch of them. Any previous suicide attempt could make you at higher risk. Acquiring a gun or stockpiling pills, that's a biggie, right? And if you notice that, that is a gigantic red flag. That's not a little one. Those are big red flags. Co-occurring depression, moodiness, helplessness, or hopelessness. And remember, we said the more signs you have, the greater the incidence, right? And then putting personal affairs in order. Is it normal or usual for a college-age person to start putting their affairs in order?
Depends
No.
on the profession.
Well, that's a good point. Right. Okay. So yeah, I have to say, I was probably 24, 25, and my husband was going on his first deployment. And the CO made everybody go do their wills. And I had to make the list of people I wanted them to call if he were killed in action or something. I'm like, this is not falling apart about it, but it was the right thing to do given his right. But so that would be normal for that person, right? But completely unusual for the 18 to 25-year-old, right? I definitely have a will. I have a house. I own a house. I mean, there are things I have to do to prepare for my departure from Earth, but it's not because I'm planning to kill myself. It's because I'm old, right? So that's an important thing. Giving away prized possessions, we talked about that. All right, sudden interest or disinterest in religion. So we're going to shift there either way. Drug, alcohol, somebody mentioned. And remember, this is a biggie. Alcohol, especially, other drugs too, but alcohol especially will really lower the depression threshold. So that if one is already thinking about suicide and then they're tying one on, they're more likely to follow through with that act. So that's a really important one to know. A lot of overlap. Unexplained anger, aggression, irritability, seeking revenge, talking or writing about death. We get a ton of death reports from instructors on campus concerned about some writing that a student has sent in, right? I followed up lots of students about essays they've written. And I'm delighted to do so. I'm so happy that our instructors are aware of some of the concerns that they might see in writing in classwork. And then engaging in risky behavior. We talked about that earlier. Speeding, drinking, like if you drink a drink or two or three at a party every once in a while, and it becomes every night and lots, and you black out every night. That is risky behavior, right? Drinking and driving. Multiple sex, many sex partners, like changing the risk level from your norm is a big red flag. Okay. So these are situational things that can happen. So being fired or suspended from school, a recent unwanted move, talk about military kids, right? Our kids, boy, lots of moves. Loss of any major relationship, breakups, oh my goodness. So we had a student several years ago now who was watching a video in class and started crying. And it was unusual behavior for that student, right? So the instructor walked him over to the student health center and he spoke to one of my colleagues and said he was really upset because one of his friends had just killed himself and described this whole suicide situation. And he said he was fine, and so Sharon let him go back to class, but she didn't buy it, so she contacted, and she asked if he had anybody that he was talking to, and he said a youth pastor. So he called the church, she called the church where the student went, and the youth pastor was not there. He hadn't been there for weeks. Because he was on a trip, and it was before, I know it's hard to believe, but it was the days before cell phones, so you couldn't actually call your friend in Europe, it was hard to do that. So, so then she called the family and found out that the parents were away that weekend. The friend that he said killed himself didn't kill himself, and in fact, they were gonna have a party at their house that night, and the friend was gonna be there. And then my colleague said, so has there been a big change in the student's, life lately? Oh yeah, he's really upset, his girlfriend just broke up with him. And he was actually planning to kill himself, and was describing his plan to her under the guise of it's being his friend's plan. So a change in a relationship is very significant, and luckily, she was able to gather together his support group and contact the parents and get everybody home and get him the help he needed, and it was successful. That's how PPR works. Listening to the story and kind of not just being surfacey as a listener, right? Okay, so we talked about deaths, diagnosis of serious or terminal illness. We kind of talked about that earlier. Okay, sudden and unexpected loss of freedom or punishment. Before people go, if they're going to be incarcerated, that's a time. Fear of becoming a burden to others, we talked about. Do we have humiliation, bullying, or exploitation?
No.
Awesome. Yeah, yes, yeah. And is it here at school, or does it happen?
Like online.
Yes, online, social media, lots and lots of bullying that way. Yeah. And then loss of a cherished therapist, counselor, or teacher, also a really common. All right, so we're going to transition now to the second. So you got the background, and now you're going to get the skills. Okay, so Jasmine's going to take it.
Right. We're gonna actually go through the QPR process. So these are like the steps you can take. So there's some tips for asking a question in general, right? It's really important that if you have that little red flag go off or that gut feeling, you don't wait to ask the question. You don't be like, I think I'm going to wait. Like, I'll wait it out a couple weeks, see how things go, right? If in doubt, don't ask, if in doubt, don't wait, ask the question. If the person's reluctant, like you ask them and you kind of feel like you're getting brushed off or like not the whole story, be persistent, right? This is something where I think sometimes depending on culture and everything too, we're like, well, I don't want to invade their personal space or whatnot, but it's really important to be persistent. And again, like we want to think about where we're asking the question. Like if we're in this giant group setting, I'm not gonna be like, hey, are you thinking about killing yourself, right? Like out in front of everyone, that's not the best tactic. So it's really important to try to say like, hey, can we chat for a minute? Like somewhere private, somewhere where you have that ability to have this really important conversation. And then we really want to be a good listener and let them talk freely. Like we're asking them to open up about a very personal thing. So it's really important to listen and let them share everything they want to share, right? Not like interrupting them or like guiding the conversation. They should be able to express themselves freely. And then you want to give a lot of time for this conversation. You don't know where it's going to go. You don't know if you're going to need to connect to other resources. So again, if there's like something you absolutely cannot miss in 5 minutes, not the best time to start that conversation, right? And then it's really good. Today you're going to get some resources and you've got the QPR book. Having those in a place, whether that's on your phone or somewhere where you can easily access it. With these difficult conversations, the more prepared you are, the more resources you have, the easier it is to just kind of like transition into that if needed, right? So the more prepared you are, the easier it is to have this difficult conversation. And then it's not as important that you get every single thing right. It's more important that you ask the question, right? So making sure you make that contact, you ask that question. There may be things you're like, oh, I wish I would have said this different or done this differently. But it's more important that you actually do it. So there's some strategies for the Q part, right? For the question of QPR. You can take a less direct approach. If you're someone who's not very comfortable being direct with people, you can like start with like, hey, have you been unhappy lately, right? Just kind of opening that conversation up and then kind of progressing it to like, have you been like very unhappy lately? And then kind of checking that response and then getting to the question. Have you been so very unhappy lately that you've been thinking about ending your life, right? So it's a little less direct. You're not starting with the third option, you're kind of working your way into it. And then sometimes you have to take into context, like how old are they? Like what's their understanding of this question? And so especially for children, you can ask it in a little, again, less direct approach. You can ask something like, do you ever wish you could go to sleep and never wake up? Right? So it's something where you can start to like then explore from there. Yeah.
So, the one for children, another really good one is that for people like Alzheimer's or dementia, because a lot of them won't understand what you're asking unless you say it that way.
Yeah.
Like I had a patient recently who just said, like, I said that and went off and nurse and was like, hey, we need to do something about this. And she has that, like, we asked all this other question. She's like, no, we asked that last one. She's like, oh yeah, I really do. I was like, there it is.
Yeah. So depending on mental acuity, all of those things, a less direct approach can be really effective. You can also, if you're comfortable with being direct and it's appropriate, you can just kind of have a little story to get right to that question, right? You can kind of show that empathy. You know, when people are hurting or upset as much as you are, they sometimes wish they were dead. I'm wondering if you're feeling that way too, right? Like, are you feeling like you want to be dead? So it's a little bit more direct. And then probably the most direct is straight up asking, right? Are you thinking about killing yourself? Or are you thinking about committing suicide, right? Things like that, where it's a very direct approach. This is really hard. It's not easy to talk to someone like this, right? So if you feel like you can't ask that question, or it is too much for you, it's too stressful for you, it's too triggering, just find someone who can, right? Go, if you're on campus, come to the student health center and say, I'm really worried about my classmate, I'm really worried about my instructor, whoever you're worried about, and see if they can help get to that person to ask the question. So, or if it's in a social circle, finding someone else that you trust, right? And then there's some things not to do, right? It's good to know what to do, and you can alter that script with whatever works for you. But there's some things we should try to avoid. So the first one is, you're not thinking of killing yourself, are you? Why should we avoid that?
It's a leading question.
Yeah, it's a leading question. It's like, it's, you know, it's like, you're not thinking of killing yourself, are you? Right? No. Okay. Definitely a bit leading. How about the second one? You wouldn't do anything stupid, would you? Yeah.
Well, it implies that suicide is stupid, and like the word stupid just carries
Yeah.
a big connotation.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think if someone's using stupid in a sentence, I'm shutting off, right? Like, if there was my behavior, yeah.
Like, I feel like that, like, if you let it like that, like, you'd be like, I don't want to listen to you, like,
Yeah.
you're really making me feel like how I'm feeling, it's not
Yeah.
important at
Could
all.
also give them
Judgy
the extra oomph they need.
Yeah. Right? So it feels a little judgy. It feels a little like diminishing of someone's feelings, right? You're calling it stupid. So being careful not to use words like that, that either show that kind of like judgment or kind of like, oh, that's just a bad idea. Suicide is a dumb idea. Surely you're not thinking about suicide. What do we got with this one?
That's good.
Solid question. Stupid thought. Don't do it, right? What's wrong with this one? Yeah.
Like my grandma usually use that second question or that third question with me, and every time she says that third one, I'm always just like, well, now you're making me feel like everything that I'm ever thinking about is like not worth it. Like maybe I should just give up. Like it makes me feel more helpless when she says it that way.
Yeah, like you're dead, like, and it's like you don't want to handle that, right? Like you're like, I don't really want to have this conversation or handle this, so I'm just gonna be like, you're not doing that, right?
Like all this association.
Yeah. Did you have? Yeah, it's hard. Did you have something to add?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that, like, asking that question, especially if the person asking it is someone that the person with ideations is close to,
Yeah.
makes them feel like if they are thinking about
Yeah.
it, which can't speak to you about it because you're gonna call them stupid and
Definitely.
feel bad about
Yeah.
it.
So this is like the worst option because it's kind of like both. It's got the, and this is really common because this is hard to do, and that's why you're in this training. I know a lot of people have said, like, family members, people close to them will just be like, you're not gonna do that, right? Like you're not doing that, you're not thinking about that. And so it's, again, it's really important not to have that leading question. And then for persuade, right? So we're moving on. We did the question part, we're on to persuade. So here are some tips for how to persuade someone to stay alive. We want to make sure, again, we're listening to the problem and giving our full attention. So I think everyone really has a good pulse on that off of our last slide, right? We're not going to be like, this is dumb, don't do it, glad we chatted. All right, moving on, right? We're really engaging. And then remember, suicide's not the problem, only the solution to a perceived insoluble problem. So Alice Knowles talks about having a friend that was like, suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem, right? And so even how we view suicide or depression or anything else, we need to make sure we're viewing that there's other solutions for that and getting them to feel that way too. And it's really hard, but we can't rush to judgment, right? Something that may make someone feel like, you know, the math test, and we're like, I passed math, I'm stoked, right? So we can't judge that, because for that person, that math test means family acceptance. It means so much more. And so being really careful not to rush to judgment. And then if we can offer hope in any form, that is really helpful with persuading. Even when it's the smallest amount of hope, right? Or even if it's kind of like working with them. I had a friend who worked for the suicide hotline for a really long time. And like he would get them talking about their life, and they'd be like, oh, I have a cat that I love a lot. And it's like, oh, so you have a cat and that brings you joy. Yeah, I love my cat. It gives me a lot of joy, right? And then working from there, something that there's hope for. There's something like, okay, well, what if then we can get you help, right? And then you can be there for your cat. So offering hope. And so again, here's some kind of more tips for it. So we want to persist in statements that suicide's not a good solution and suggest that better alternatives can be found, right? So we're focusing on suicide's not the option. We're not just being like, suicide's a bad idea, right? We're going to give those other options. And that's kind of doing this training, getting those resources. Here are some other things you can try. We want to focus on healthy alternatives to the problem, not suicide. So kind of same thing, right? Here's some alternatives. You know, we can talk about meeting with a different therapist, maybe trying different medication if needed. But like, okay, that wasn't a good fit for you, but maybe now it would be a better time to try, right? So focusing on those solutions. And then we have to be able to accept the reality of the person's pain, but still offer alternatives. Like, it's okay that you're in pain, right? We're not just diminishing that you're hurting right now. We're just going to try to help you find solutions to that pain. We're not being like, no, you're all good, you're fine, like, shake it off. No. And then again, show respect. It may be something we don't understand, but we have to be able to respect that person and what they're sharing. And then you can collaborate with the person and ensure that you're going to be there and support them, right? So sometimes just knowing someone cares, knowing like, hey, I'm not just going to like drop you off and never check in again. If you're able to, and you can be like, hey, I want to be here for you. Like, I can offer you support. I can help you get these resources, all of that, that can make someone feel like they have someone on their side. It can be really like, okay, if I'm not in this alone, that's helpful. And again, offer hope in any form, in any way. And that's, again, that length of conversation can be helpful to find that. So a really common thing is like, you may suggest like, how about you get treatment, right? Why don't you go see someone or talk to someone? And they say that they've had treatment, it doesn't work. We can ask, what if this time it does work? And that can be the hope, right? That can sometimes be enough hope. Like, what if this time that treatment does help? We find someone that it does work with. All right, and then on to the R, the refer here, right? Suicidal people often believe they cannot be helped. So you sometimes have to do more. We talked about this at the beginning. The refer part's really important because we don't expect all of you to manage everything and be the therapist and all of that, right? Your job is to help get them to the best referral. And so there's a couple of different strategies again for this. One of the best ways is directly taking them in that moment to get help. So will you go with me to get help? If you're on campus, where can you go?
The student health center, yeah.
Good job. Yeah.
I wish we had more prizes.
Yeah. I should bring like a t-shirt next time. We add that to the list of requests. So just so will you go with me to get help? If that's not here, finding that place again, knowing your resources, you could take someone to go to get help. So that's kind of the best thing, because you know you're delivering them to someone who can help them. The kind of next best option is to ask if they will let you get help with them, right? So will you let me help you get help? So you're not necessarily taking them somewhere, but it's like, hey, let's find this resource. Let's maybe text the crisis text line together. Let's call 988. Will you at least let me help you kind of get help or help you find someone? Different, yeah.
Yeah, other than the emergency room and adult psychiatric, or, I mean, I guess it depends who you're talking to. But like private psychiatric wards, what are the other like local like centers you can take someone to if they're dealing with suicide?
Yeah,
That's kind of it. I mean,
Oh.
and then
Okay.
from there.
Yeah.
Depends on what's going on, but that's actually the best strategy in an emergency, right?
yeah. Or to like, if it's truly an emergency, which we talked about, if you call 911, that can also help get to, but that's kind of too with 988. They can help direct you places. We do have public facilities. But an emergency room, at least, you know, they will get transferred for it.
I was about to say, with the emergency room though, we have to make sure that it's one that can place them on 5154, because not all hospitals do that, and some of them will be like, after like an hour, and like, okay, they're good to go home.
That's why 911 is the best call instead of transporting them to an emergency room. That's the best way to do it, because law enforcement will be able to.
And if that person, if you know that they are working with like a therapist or something like that, that again, when you go to the right resource, they can kind of help you say like, okay, this is where you need to go. So again, kind of asking them to let you be involved in the process to get help. So you're there, you're on the team basically. And then this is our third option, right? So maybe you try the first two, it's not really working out. The third best referral is to say, will you promise me not to kill yourself until we found some help? So sometimes that person just making that promise to you is enough to say like, okay, I promised them I wouldn't kill myself until we got help. Yes.
So similar like a suicide contract deal. Kind of,
Like
but a verbal one.
a verbal suicide contract.
Yeah.
My therapist made me sign a contract with her that promised all I was anything.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Another thing that I found really helpful, I talk with people who are feeling this way, is to say like, can we wait 5 minutes? Like, can you not do anything for 5 minutes?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just break it up into like chunks of time.
Yeah, like, and sometimes that is like a short term thing, like, okay, let's take 5 minutes, and then you're like, let's take tonight, let's take today, let's
Mhm.
take this week, right? So breaking it up into those like tangible, like, yes, you know, I can do this for 5 more minutes, I can do this for 1 more hour, I can do this. So yeah, so definitely kind of, it sounds like everyone has really good strategies they've been able to share and talk about. But it's just that whether you want to call it a contract or a verbal promise or just knowing you're accountable to someone else, like, does that, like, that just is like something that gives them one more, like, yeah, someone cares, right? All right, and we talked about this before, alcohol or drug use can be really difficult when dealing with suicidal ideation because it does lower that threshold. So when possible, getting that commitment to sobriety is really important, right? And so again, that may be something that needs its own treatment, because if someone is alcohol dependent, they can't just be like, okay, sober today, right? So knowing that balance, knowing how that fits into the equation is really important. And thinking about, again, overall, just your willingness to listen and to help can rekindle hope and make all the difference. So there's like, oh, sometimes there's suicide stories where someone says, if one person says something nice to me today, I won't kill myself, right? If one person notices that I'm upset, I won't kill myself. And you hear those stories. And so sometimes that one person checking in or that one person being willing to be there does make all the difference, even if you feel like it's small. Yeah.
So get off your phone and say hi to people.
I mean, I think that's a lot of what Scott brought up today. It's a bigger culture of things too, right? The language we use, what we accept, how we talk about people, how we treat other races and ethnicity. So yeah, there's this whole cultural element to all of this as well. And so these are a lot of really great numbers to kind of take a picture of, keep in line. A lot of the resources are also in your book, and all of these can be found on our Student Health Center website. So we have one of our tabs is the mental health self-screening and resource page. There is a very long list of mental health resources on that page, including really specific ones. So even like there's, you know, the loneliness line, we have the Trevor Lifeline, and the text line's also on our website. The really cool thing about like Trevor Lifeline and certain websites like this is there's like a safe escape to it. So if someone is trying to like maybe is part of the LGBTQ plus community, is on the website, is maybe going to look for some help. If you hit escape, it automatically closes the website. So it's kind of like a nice little safety feature if someone doesn't want, someone to know they're on that website or something like that. So again, all of these resources and more can be found on our website. So I really recommend checking that out. And then these were when we talked about what's the importance of finding that diversity within therapy, all of those things. So these are two websites that we talked about. The Inclusive Therapist allows you to like search therapists by certain identities, and that can help if you want someone that maybe matches an identity that you share or something, so you feel like you have that deeper understanding. I know this is really important to Ventura County because the public health side of me, like our community needs assessments show that people feel like they don't have therapists that represent their identities. So especially like within the LGBTQ plus community and certain racial groups. And they said that that's a hindrance to them seeking care, right? So Inclusive Therapist is a really good one. And then Psychology Today is another website we recommend. Again, safety. If someone has a weapon, you call 911, right? If someone has an object that can be used as a weapon, you call 911. Safety is the most important thing. If you're speaking over the phone with a person and they express the intent to harm themselves, that person's at home, something like that, you call 911, right? Because you're not going to like drive over there and be like, let me just check this out, right? You just call 911. If you think there's been an overdose of pills or drugs, or there's any sign of physical injury, again, 911. And then if you are confronted with someone who's hostile or armed, you have to ensure your safety first, right? You leave the area, if you can, you try to like isolate the person, but again, safety first, so leave the area. You can attempt to observe their direction of movement and keep a safe distance. So when you're on the phone, you can be like, oh, they're walking around this building. They're back here, right? And then you report anything you've observed to the authorities. So usually dispatch will keep you on the phone and you would just report anything. But safety first, right? We can't go in and try to be like careless to something when our safety would be in danger. And then just overall, right? Since almost all efforts to persuade someone to live instead of attempt suicide will be met with agreement and relief, don't hesitate to get involved or take the lead, right? Anything you do, even if you don't do it perfectly, is better than nothing. And so to wrap up some of those tips, it's really important that you instill that you want that person to live, right? I want you to live. I'm on your side. We'll get through this. Get others involved. It's not on you. If they have friends that they're close with, or families, or siblings, or religious organizations, make it a team. Make sure multiple people are part of that kind of like safety blanket. And if you have the ability to be part of that team, we talked about that. Being like, I'm here for you. I will check in with you, all of that. And then that kind of goes along with following up. So something dramatic happens, you have this conversation, you help them get to resources. Following up is really nice way to show you care. Okay, so I know we don't have a ton of time, but we're going to do a little 5-minute practice before we wrap up. And the reason for the practice is it can be really difficult to say those words or to get to that question. And sometimes doing it in a scripted way, even when it's a little bit like, oh, this feels awkward, helps us practice that question. So we're going to partner up just with whoever's around you. One person has like a little cue as to some things they're going to say that indicates that they're suicidal. The other person's job is to listen to that and to ask questions and to ultimately ask the questions and use the tools we have talked about today. So we're just going to give it like less than 5 minutes. Do a quick practice. Quick. Hop back like me. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.